to my channel. Today I have a super delicious and easy recipe for you guys. We are gonna make a coconut cream pie from scratch. I already have my crust made here because I like to mix up a bunch of pie crust and keep them in the freezer just to have on hand. So we're not making the pie crust, but it's a super simple recipe. This is actually fresh milled, so it's gonna behave a little bit differently than just a conventional flour, but you can use any pie crust, and I will leave my recipe below if you want to try it. All right, so to get started, I'll share the recipe here. It's just half a cup of sugar, a quarter cup of cornstarch, 2 cups of milk, and I prefer whole milk. You can use half and half, you could use milk and cream, whatever you have, but whole milk or some whole fat dairy does make for a creamier pie. I have 2 eggs, 2 tablespoons of butter, 1 1/4 cup of coconut, and you're gonna put a 1/4 cup of coconut to the side. That's gonna go on the top. And you're gonna need some vanilla extract and coconut extract if you want. It's not necessary, but it does add a little bit of that coconut punch flavor that's just a little bit stronger than you get just with coconut alone. Started, you're just gonna have your pan and your burner off. And you're going to take your 2 cups of milk. You're gonna go ahead and add that to your pan. And then you're going to crack in 2 eggs to your cold milk. That's important because I don't temper my eggs, and I use whole eggs, not just the yolks. I do not temper my eggs because I don't find it to be necessary as long as you do it this way. Otherwise, you're gonna end up with a little bit of like a scrambled egg texture, but if you do it this way, then you won't. So we're gonna go in with a half a cup of sugar. Now we use a little bit less sugar than most people probably would, so if you want to have it a little bit sweeter, then you could maybe go like 2/3 or 3/4 a cup. With the heat off, you're gonna go ahead and start to give this a whisk. All right, and I find for the pudding, just because of the texture and you really want to get the eggs broken up, then I use a whisk, like a traditional whisk, not the Danish whisk. Okay, and you're really gonna want to whisk this well. And so when I say whisk it well, I mean really. Once it looks completely smooth, and the white chunks you see in there is actually coconut cream because we had a few tablespoons left from popsicles that we made, and I just threw it in here to get it out of the fridge. So everything is well mixed. And we're ready to turn on the heat. So you're gonna go with about I use like a medium high. You wanna make sure you have a heavy bottomed pot so that it doesn't scorch. And then you're just gonna keep whisking, and you are going to now add the cornstarch. A cup of cornstarch here. Going to mix that, whisk it in until it's all dissolved, and then you're just going to stand here and you're just going to continue to whisk your pudding until it starts to thicken. And it's going to take about 10 minutes. You don't want to walk away and come back and see if it's thickened, because you will very likely scorch it on the bottom, and scorched burnt pudding does not taste good. You might be able to salvage it by just completely pouring it off and leaving the scorched bit to the bottom, but I wouldn't recommend. So anyways, you're just gonna stand here and continue to stir, and you don't have to whisk it hard, but you just wanna keep it moving and make sure you're scraping the bottom of that pan. Thicken. You don't want any of that to stick to the bottom of the pan, because then you'll have chunks in your pudding. So you want it to be completely smooth, and to do that, you just have to stand here and whisk, whisk, whisk. So it doesn't take long, and it's completely worth it making homemade pudding. There is nothing like it. So I'm just gonna stand here and just keep moving it around, scraping the sides and bottom, and you're just gonna keep moving it around, and you'll start to feel it when it starts to thicken. So this is just what I do. I just stand, move it around, make sure I'm getting the bottom, and just keep it moving. All right, so you can see it's starting to simmer, so I'm gonna turn it down to a lower heat, and then it is thickening already, so we're just going to continue to stir, and you can see how it's already thickening, It's just going to continue to thicken until it's like a pudding-like consistency, and then it will also continue to thicken as it cools and it sits in the pie crust. So we're just going to get this about 2 more minutes here on the heat, and then we'll turn the heat off and add the rest of our ingredients. All right, friends, so we are all the way thick. You can see here it looks like pudding. So now that the heat's off, we're gonna go in with our 2 tablespoons of butter. And we're gonna go in with about a teaspoon of vanilla. You don't wanna make this vanilla pudding, so you don't wanna overdo the vanilla here. But it is a little bit, I find the vanilla brings a little bit of a floral and creamy note to it. So then also we're going to add just a few drops of coconut extract, and that is optional. You don't have to add it. And then now we're just going to add 1 cup of coconut. It's traditionally made with like a sweetened coconut, but we don't buy sweetened coconut. We buy this coconut from Azure Standard, and this is just how I make my pies, and it turns out just fine. If you want to toast your coconut with sugar, you can sprinkle into a dry skillet. You can put some of this coconut and sprinkle a little bit of just granulated sugar over the top and kind of toast it in the pan until it's just lightly browned, and the sugar and the coconut will caramelize together, and it'll give you that like sugared coconut type topping. All right, so we have all of our ingredients in the pan here, and we are just going to give it a mix. And you can see it's nice and thick, and it's going to continue to set up as it chills in the refrigerator. So this is completely done. The pudding component, you could, eat this as like a coconut pudding, but we're gonna make a pie today, so we're gonna do that. All right, so I'm just gonna show you how to toast coconut. You can do this with the already sweetened coconut, or you can do it with like what I have, which is just an unsweet coconut flake. So we're just gonna put our coconut into a dry pan and turn it on to about medium heat. And then I'm going to sprinkle in just a little bit of sugar. Probably about a teaspoon. And you're just going to give that a stir in the pan and push it around. Do not walk away from this because it will scorch and burn. All right, so you can see it is quickly starting to toast up here. The sugar is like melting and it sticks to the coconut, so you're just making like your own, sweetened toasted coconut flakes. So you're just gonna keep stirring. And this is gonna go pretty quick. Once it already starts to get color on it, it's not gonna take long for it to brown. So don't walk away, keep stirring. And then once you get it toasted to your liking, then you're done. All right, so this is nicely toasted just how I like it. And I'm going to turn off the heat. And remember, if you use a cast iron pan, that this is gonna hold on to heat for quite a while. So you're gonna wanna move this off of the heat. Don't leave it on the burner. So there we have nice, perfectly toasted, sugared coconut. And you can see those little sugar granules. Those are going to crunch up as this cools and gonna make the perfect topping for our pie. So now we're just gonna start rolling out our pie crust. And like I said, mine is fresh milled wheat, so it behaves a little differently and it's a little bit on the stickier side. But you can use any pie crust recipe that you like, and I will link mine below. I have a fresh milled crust and just a regular old conventional flour crust. So because it's fresh milled, I'm going to roll it out either under plastic or parchment, but since I already had this plastic because it came on out of the freezer, I'm just gonna use that. Roll my crust into I kind of do like 6ths maybe or 8ths, and I just kind of go from the center out, and that helps to create a nice round shape. And then I just go in, give it a flip to the other side and do the same thing. And if you have trouble transferring your pie crust once it has been rolled out, a tip is you can roll it out on a piece of parchment paper or plastic wrap, and I'll show you here in a minute. And then you just lift up the plastic or parchment and you're going to flip it into your pie pan, and that just takes a lot of the hassle out of transferring it. If you're not comfortable doing that, it makes it so much easier and it doesn't tear. So we're getting there, we're really close. And the reason I'm using this Silpat silicone sheet here is because with a traditional pie crust, you wouldn't worry too much about adding more flour to the crust so that it didn't stick, and I would just roll it on my counter here. But because this is fresh milled, it does behave a little differently, and I find that rolling it out on this Silpat just makes it a little bit easier to handle. And so when you're using fresh milled flour, you can tell if the dough is properly hydrated, because if your edges are cracking, then that means you need a little bit more hydration or liquid in your recipe. So fresh milled is going to be a little bit of a wetter dough. All right, so I think this is probably close. Here we go. All right, there we go. All right, so let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to transfer this as if this bottom piece was parchment. This also works on parchment too, but I just use this Silpat. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna get your ungreased pie dish, and then you're just gonna take your pie crust, and then you're just going to lay it over and kind of peel it back. And that's going to help you transfer your pie dough without tearing it, because I know that can be a little tricky for some people. So then you're just going to start lifting here and letting it fall in. Now you don't want it to tear, but if it does, it's super easy. You're just gonna pinch it back together. And because this is a coconut cream pie, it's a it's a pudding style pie, this is gonna be a blind baked crust. So we are just going to get this in our dish here, and then we are going to blind bake this crust. I'm just gonna dock it so that it doesn't puff up, and docking is just, you just poke holes in it. And so I'm just going to kind of piece the sides together here pretty and make sure I'm kind of even all the way around. If you need to kind of like push and slide some dough up the sides to fill in gaps, you can do that. You could tear off a piece and move it. So I have mine almost perfectly done. I'm just gonna go in now and kind of crimp the edges just to make them pretty. This is not necessary and you don't have to do it. And everybody does it a little differently. You can use a fork on the edges. Let's see, I need a little bit more on this side. You can use like a fork on the edges to make that pretty design. But like I said, today I'm just gonna do it like this. And with as many pies as I've made, you'd think my pies would be a little prettier, but I'm just not artistic, so. But I cook good food, and that's what matters. My family loves it. All right, so there you go. We are just going to dock this and make sure you get the edges too, because you don't want those sides to puff up, because then when it cools, when you take it out of the oven, it will break and your pie will leak through. Nobody wants a leaky pie. All right, beautiful. This is so beautiful, and you can see those flecks of butter still in there. Those are going to melt and cause that to crisp up and make the most flaky pie dough. And we're just going to get in this into a 375-degree oven just for about 10 minutes. You just want it lightly browned. So now our pie crust is out of the oven, and mine did shrink a little bit. And I can tell you exactly why it did that, because I did not have the heat on the oven hot enough, and I did not chill my crust first, but that's because I was in a hurry, so I didn't chill it. But number two, I'm baking 6 loaves of bread at 375, and so I didn't want to burn my bread. So anyways, a little bit of an unperfect pie crust, but you know what? It's gonna taste just as good. I'm not worried about it. And it still perfectly fit our coconut cream here. So look at that, how beautiful that is. All right, so we put our hot pudding into a slightly cooled pie crust, and then we are just gonna let this rest for about 15 minutes before we pop it into the fridge to chill completely. All right, so it has cooled for about 10 minutes, and then you just want to press the plastic to the top of the pudding so that you don't create one of those films on top. It's not the end of the world, but it is just a little bit of an odd texture. So for a perfect pudding top for your pie, you're just gonna press some plastic to the top and put it in the fridge to chill. I have a super cool mini fridge here at the end of my island. We planned this house pre-kids, and wow, what a genius idea. We had our big fridge over there, and this is just a little like built-in mini fridge here, and we use it as like an overflow fridge, but I also use it for like drinks and things like that, and I can use it to like quickly chill things down. I just love having this extra space in my kitchen. And then also, if you have kids or parties over and people are like self-serving themselves drinks, then they can get in and out of this fridge without getting into your main fridge. All right, y'all, so we have our finished products here. We have our sugared and toasted coconut that we made, or you can just toast any old shredded sugared coconut from the grocery store. We have our pie, just the pudding in the pie. And then I just quickly whipped up some cream here in a jar, and I used my immersion blender. So we are just going to get this frosted up and in the fridge ready for dinner tonight. So there's really no particular method to this. You just do whatever works best for you and whatever is easiest. You can use a offset spatula. Sometimes I do that, but I think I'm gonna go make myself an iced coffee in this when I finish icing this. So you're just gonna wanna spread it all the way. This is a completely cooled pie. And you're just going to, now everybody likes to do it different. You might wanna spread it all the way to the edges like a meringue pie, or you might want to leave a little bit of the pudding layer showing on the outside, just kind of like a border. So just do however you think looks pretty, and regardless of what it looks like, I promise if you follow this recipe, it is going to taste amazing. So you can do like a little design, like if you do a like a meringue kind of design, but I'm just gonna do like a swirl around because we are just going to top this with our toasted coconut. This is gonna be delicious. So we're just going to top this beautiful coconut cream pie here with our toasted coconut. And I have some anxious little helpers. Hold on. All right, everybody. All right, Sissy, you can go. All right, guys, sprinkle it on there evenly.
I just love toasted coconut.
Yum. Donut.
My favorite.
My favorite.
Alrighty, y'all, that is it for this video. I hope that it blessed you and inspired you. Go ahead and get in the kitchen and make this wonderful coconut cream pie. If you have any questions at all, leave them down in the comments. I'd love to chat with you. And as always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share so everyone can come spend some time with Lauren. I'll see you in the next one. Bye, friends.
Ooh, I want to taste some.